Here's your wrestling news for January 17th, 2023, and we're kicking off today with Cody Rhodes. And last June, WWE's plans were derailed by a torn pectoral, but now the American Nightmare's future is back on track. On this week's Raw, WWE aired their latest vignette highlighting the American Nightmare's return, and it was announced that he will be back at the Royal Rumble next week and part of the men's Royal Rumble match. Rhodes' return will be a huge deal, though many are questioning why WWE didn't keep this a surprise, which surely would have gotten an even bigger reaction. It's not like fans weren't going to tune into the Royal Rumble before Rhodes' return was confirmed, as the show is often touted as one of the most exciting nights on WWE's calendar. If nothing else, at least we know Cody is fully healed, but do you think his return should have been kept as a surprise? Let us know in the comments. This week's announcement came in the latest of a series of video vignettes which have recapped Rhodes' roller coaster year in WWE since returning. These videos have been impressively well made by WWE's production team, and it is a veteran of the business who has been doing the editing. Dave Meltzer reported on Wrestling Observer Radio that Jeremy Borash has been the one working on these videos, and he and Rhodes are no strangers. After leaving WWE in 2016, the American Nightmare spent a bit of time in Impact Wrestling while Borash was with the company. With Rhodes' return being announced this week, it's unclear whether we'll get another vignette on next week's Raw, but if you've been enjoying these videos, then you have Jeremy Borash to thank. During next week's Raw, undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns will be present for the 30th anniversary of the Red brand, but as you'd expect, he's not coming alone. As you'd expect, the Bloodline will be around to look out for their tribal chief, but next week's historic Raw will also feature a family reunion. The Bloodline has a long and illustrious history in wrestling, with several members of the family being WWE Hall of Famers, but which members might appear next week? Perhaps it'll be Rikishi who shows up, as he is the father of 3 Bloodline members, namely the Usos and Solo Sikoa. Rikishi isn't just a WWE Hall of Famer, but played a literal big role in the company throughout the Attitude Era and helped shape the careers of his kids. Perhaps Afa and Sika will be around, as the Wild Samoans first broke into pro wrestling in the 70s and would go on to become 3-time WWF Tag Team Champions. Despite retiring decades ago, Afa and Sika appeared at WWE Hell in a Cell 2020 when Reigns defeated Jey Uso, and in his post-match celebration, the Wild Samoans acknowledged Roman as the head of the table. Now, given the verbiage surrounding next week's show, saying that every generation of the family will be attending, it makes sense that Afa and Sika will be at Raw 20, and while they obviously can't do much physically, their presence will be worth having. Rikishi and the Wild Samoans will be great to see, but the big name everyone is discussing is The Rock, who, as we all know, is part of the Bloodline. With reports of Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania, him showing up next week is a possibility, and we know that he won't otherwise be preoccupied. It was reported some time ago that The Rock's schedule for the first quarter of 2023 is empty, a very suspicious move for someone heralded as one of the busiest men in Hollywood. It could be that all these legends appeared to acknowledge Reigns as their tribal chief, but the segment is interrupted by the Brahma Bull, who refuses to do so. It'd be this act of defiance that would set up Reigns versus The Rock at WrestleMania in one of the biggest matches to ever happen in a WWE ring. Either way, next week's acknowledgement ceremony will be one to remember, and it also remains to be seen how Kevin Owens plans to spoil the tribal chief's big night ahead of their match at the Royal Rumble. With other legends such as Ric Flair returning and a steel cage match booked, next week's 30th anniversary show will be one to remember, but an appearance from the Great One would turn a memorable Raw into an all-time classic. Back to this week's Raw, as Alexa Bliss continued her feud with Bianca Belair this week, but the EST wasn't the only person on her mind. Appearing on the show, Bliss said that Belair fears the unpredictable, and it wasn't too long before the two women started brawling. After taking a lot of punishment from the Raw Women's Champion, things were not looking good for Bliss, who was about to be on the receiving end of a KOD onto some steel chairs. Just before Belair was going to make the move though, the ominous silhouette of Uncle Howdy emerged, throwing the EST off her game long enough for Bliss to escape the move. Leveling Belair with a DDT onto the hard floor, Bliss looked at Uncle Howdy before walking away, unsure as to what exactly is going on. Bliss and the fans may not know why Uncle Howdy is helping her, but his presence is proving to be greatly beneficial for Miss 5 Feet of Fury, and with a title match set for the Royal Rumble, Bianca Belair's reign as Raw Women's Champion is in serious jeopardy. Since his return last October, Bray Wyatt has yet to compete on WWE programming, though that will all change with his upcoming Lights Out match with LA Knight at the Royal Rumble. While fans are eagerly anticipating this match at the Rumble, WWE is always looking ahead, and plans are coming together for Wyatt at WrestleMania. On his show, Dave Meltzer explained that right now the plan is for Wyatt to take on Uncle Howdy at WWE's biggest annual event of the year, with what will be a match nearly 6 months in the making. WWE still haven't given any hints as to who Uncle Howdy is, though Wyatt did cryptically say that he is the mysterious person, but that's physically impossible. The most popular theory is that Howdy is Bo Dallas, who was backstage at WWE Raw earlier this month, the same episode that Uncle Howdy appeared on the red brand. WrestleMania 39 will mark 2 years since Wyatt's controversial loss to Randy Orton, and will prove to be a test of just how much WWE's new regime is ready to push the former Fiend. Now Vince McMahon is back, folks, and his return has sent shockwaves throughout WWE and the rest of the professional wrestling industry. From a potential sale to the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund to Chief Content Officer Paul Triple H Levesque holding a talent meeting prior to last Friday's Smackdown, uncertainty seems to be around every corner at the moment. It was at last week's talent meeting that the game tried to calm any fears in the company, and now another meeting has taken place. Before last night's Raw, the game held another talent meeting, but he didn't come alone, as WWE's Chief Content Officer was joined by Executive Producer Kevin Dunn and Executive VP of Talent Dan Ventrell. Fightful Select reports that this report hit many of the same points as the Smackdown meeting, with Triple H reminding everyone that he is Chief Content Officer and firmly in control of creative, while also stressing talent relations are not changing. Talent relations have been a huge concern backstage, as many fear that McMahon's return to sell the promotion will see the mass cuts we saw from 2020 to 2022 resume. Even at the time, many believed that these budget cuts were to maximize the promotion's profits and therefore make WWE as appealing as possible to a potential buyer. On a recent stream, Ronda Rousey said how everything in WWE right now is in a state of flux, while former WWE writer and producer Freddie Prinze Jr. has worried aloud for those talents who were rehired under Triple H's watch. The Raw meeting also addressed the story that broke last week, claiming that WWE has already been sold to the Saudi Arabia PIF, and the game and his cohorts dismissed the story. After this meeting, WWE's work continued as normal, with last night's Raw taking place in Cincinnati, Ohio, and building towards next week's Raw is 30 event and the Royal Rumble next Saturday. Based on the above report, it seems like this meeting was intended to reassure talent and staff that everything is under control. Stay tuned to Slat Rock Wrestling for more updates. One of the biggest criticisms Vince McMahon has faced over the years is that he has lost touch with what fans want and is simply too old to oversee a company that is constantly trying to appeal to a much younger audience. McMahon has made missteps in the past, such as forcing Roman Reigns down the throats of fans before his transformation into the Tribal Chief, but is he really too old? On his 83 Weeks podcast, Eric Bischoff made it clear he doesn't believe McMahon is out of touch and says that the past week has shown the opposite to be true. The whole Vince is old and out of touch thing, you can argue that maybe creatively because you don't like Vince's vision of what wrestling should be, but it doesn't mean that he's not in control of his faculties or that he's missed a beat. I think that's interesting chatter because people aren't happy with what they're seeing on television. Oh, it's because he's too old. No ageism, right? I would say the events of the last week would suggest that he is far from out of touch. Bischoff went on to say that the aftermath of a WWE sale would be quite a challenge, especially if the company is sold to the Saudi Public Investment Fund. Bischoff pointed out how LIV Golf, which is financed by the PIF, has struggled to get a TV deal because of its association with the controversial nation, and added, "I see them being a player, but I think because of the challenge of television rights, so far at least, I think it's a pretty remote possibility." Fans thought they'd seen the end of McMahon last July, but now he is back and ready to make the biggest deal of his life. So while fans may feel he's out of touch with creative, the billionaire is on the ball when it comes to business. For weeks, the wrestling news cycle has been dominated by stories of a WWE sale, something that one time seemed impossible, but is now seemingly increasingly likely. Names reportedly interested in purchasing WWE include Comcast, Fox, Netflix, Disney, Amazon, the Saudi Arabia Public Investment Fund, Endeavor, and even AEW president Tony Khan. The list of potential buyers can be split into two categories: those who have experience with wrestling programming, such as Comcast, Fox, the Saudis, and Khan, and those who don't. Speaking on his What Happened When podcast, wrestling industry veteran Tony Schiavone shared his 2 cents and mentioned something Vince McMahon should consider before selling. On the show, Schiavone sent a warning to a TV company that might buy WWE based on his experience with WCW and TBS. Eric Bischoff says Thunder was a bad call. Thunder was TBS's call, nobody wanted Thunder, and there again is the rub, and there again is the reason I know I'm right on this. Why WCW would have never worked. You cannot have a television company that knows nothing about running a wrestling company calling the shots. That's why WCW went down, because it was owned by a television company. You can't just be another cog in the wheel, so to speak, like we were. Can't be another WCW, Atlanta Braves, Atlanta Thrashers, CNN, TBS, TNT like we were. You've got to be your own entity. A recurring concern among fans is that WWE will be sold to an entity that does not know how to book wrestling, but will insist on having a hands-on approach in a detriment to the product. But what do you make to Schiavone's comments, and who do you want to see become the new owners of WWE? Sound off in the comments. Ever since McMahon returned to WWE, there have been questions as to what he will do other than oversee a sale. There has been speculation as to whether McMahon will appear on TV, which many believe would be a PR disaster, but that may not stop the executive chairman. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer reported that there is a consensus backstage that McMahon's return to the spotlight is a question of when, not if. On Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer talked about Vince McMahon's WWE return. Meltzer noted that there is a feeling backstage in WWE that he will return to television soon. Vince is at the office, he hasn't been to TV yet, but I say probably yet. There's certainly rumors running around that he will. I've asked people, and they wouldn't be surprised, but it's not like there's a date. There's that feeling that Vince is gonna want to go out on TV and he'll get the big reaction when he does. If a return is in the cards, some believe it'll be as soon as next week's Raw, which will serve as the 30th anniversary of the show. McMahon was a fixture on Raw for years and usually got a less than favorable reaction by the crowd, but that may be nothing compared to what may be in store for the controversial billionaire if he does indeed return to TV. More from Raw, as Damage Control has been getting the better of Becky Lynch for some time now, in stark contrast to when the man seemed unbeatable not too long ago. This week, Lynch made a return through the crowd and goaded Bayley into a match for next week's Raw, which will take place inside of a steel cage. After being on the losing end for some time now, this week's Raw was a subtle indicator that the tides are turning, and expect Lynch to at last get her redemption next week. One name fans didn't see on Raw and haven't seen for quite some time is Matt Riddle, who was written off TV with an attack from Solo Sikoa of the Bloodline. In reality, Riddle has been suspended following another violation of WWE's wellness policy, and his time away from TV has not exactly been quiet. Riddle recently dropped a photo with his children where he spoke about how great it is to be home, so it seems that Riddle was with his family and, out of that, reported rehab stay. During his time off from WWE, though, the original Bro has been seen with numerous female adult film stars and has been accused of infidelity multiple times, and recently made another splash in the industry of adult entertainment. In his first public appearance since his suspension, Riddle appeared with his girlfriend Misha Montana, and the pair attended the X-Biz Awards in Los Angeles. In a deleted Instagram post, Montana wrote, "Sorry kids, mom and dad are home," as she posed with the original Bro in a photo. She also dropped several Instagram stories of herself and Matt Riddle at the event. As for Riddle's WWE future, it remains to be seen when he'll be back on TV. As with Randy Orton's back injury ending RK Bro and putting his career into question, the former US champion is without a tag partner on screen. Riddle is one of WWE's most popular superstars in years, but his actions out of the ring are proven to be an issue, and we doubt the PG-rated company will look too favorably on where Riddle was over the weekend. And we're ending today with Charlotte Flair, who is currently feuding with Sonya Deville, despite having already defeated Deville earlier this month. Despite this, Deville is eager to get another shot at the Smackdown Women's Champion, but WWE may already be setting up her next challenger. At a WWE live event, Flair faced off against Shayna Baszler, and in the past, WWE has often used live events to test the waters for a feud to play out on TV. Whether Flair and Baszler will be the next top women's feud on Smackdown after the DeVille story, that remains to be seen, but the Queen may not be finished with ex-MMA fighters on the WWE roster.